Evo Japan. We talked about it when I got back from Tokyo. I traveled around and I had a lot of fun there, but there was a lot of things that I did when I was preparing for that event, and I wanted to talk about commentary prep because you guys will probably remember back when Evo ended, I talked a lot about commentary prep I did for Dragon Ball, for main Evo in Vegas. So I figured I would talk a little bit about the kind of prep that I do for something like Evo Japan. And for Street Fighter, it's a little different, right? Because when it comes to Street Fighter prep, it's a game I've done a lot of. In fact, it's a game I've done so much of. I've done so much Street Fighter commentary that I'm trying to think if there's very many people who could have possibly done as much or more than me, right? I've done so much. I've commentated everywhere. I've been all over the place. And when you think about my match analysis stream, there are hundreds of hours of me commentating on here too. So much time and effort committed into commentating the game, and I've had so many hours of like thinking about the game, and I can do it without looking. I've realized that I've hit the point with Street Fighter commentary where I just visually, I can tell what's happening on the stream. So I don't even have to look at the screen sometimes, and I know exactly what's happening. And I feel confident talking about every like situation and character comfortably. When you think about it like that, I think a lot of people's mentality or attitude for something like Evo Japan would be, oh, well, you've done so much Street Fighter commentary. There's what else do you need to study or prep for, right? What else could there possibly be? But there was a new season. And also the big challenge about doing Evo Japan, it's in a region that, I'm not as familiar with, and there's going to be lots of players that I don't know that well. So what's most important about an event like this is figuring out who these people are and why people at home should care about these players, because I'm going to be comfortable talking about the matches. And you have to instead think about what's interesting or compelling about these different players that people from foreign audiences might not know. So some of the prep that I did for Evo Japan, probably the biggest thing I did was that there was a new season, obviously. So I played a lot of Street Fighter. In fact, I usually do play a lot of Street Fighter. I play at night. I was also watching a lot, and I was also trying to figure out how to talk about the new season and the changes to it, because there hadn't been a big event since this patch or this update, right? There had been other events, but nothing quite as large in terms of numbers or maybe the amount of people watching as Evo Japan. So I figured this is a good opportunity to sit down and try to make predictions, right? With a season like this, you have to figure out what characters are going to be good and common and what is new that you'll see that people won't know about before. And so the main characters that I wanted to study were Bison. I played a lot of Bison because I thought Bison was good in this version, and he's a character that I didn't play that much before, and I thought maybe we'll see some Bison there. Completely useless studying from my end. I didn't commentate a single Bison match the entire time I was there, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. And 2, Birdie. I played some Birdie before I left, right? Because I knew the character was very good. I saw Fudo playing Birdie in Rage and everything like that, and so I was like, okay. Or the 3v3 League, I should say, and I was like, okay, so he's going to be playing Birdie probably, and the character is very popular this season. He is really good. So I was like, I have to think about this character anyway, right? I mean, there's 2 birdies in top 8, so that always helps. I didn't end up using any of the prep I did for Bison. I think it's okay because it's a long season. It's a long year. And I don't feel like any of the prep you do is ever wasted. Not only just because, I'll end up talking about Bison eventually, but because, you learn when you prep from something like that, right? So when you do some prep, you realize what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. It changes your opinions about the characters you play. And also it gives you a better mindset about what that character's goals and motivations are in the match, right? If you ever had to learn a character that's similar, or if you ever have to talk about the character in any other context or something like that, it makes life easier. And studying Birdie was a great choice because he showed up so much. Besides that, I obviously read through the patch and thought about the patch on my stream. I watched a lot of footage of different events that were happening. Before it happened, there was obviously Street Fighter League in Japan, but there was High Fights Local Warriors, which was super useful, by the way, because it was a good glimpse into mini highlights of all the different seasons and or the different seasonal changes and how it affects what characters are being played. And also Frosty happened before that, right? There was a few events in the top of the year that I got to watch. There wasn't a ton, but there was enough for me to just be okay, here's what's happening around the world. The one thing that I really wanted to do was go to a local in Japan or watch some of the locals while I was there. And I went to Akihabara Esports Square. I also went to Fighting Tuesday while I was there, which is Bandai Namco only, right? Soul Calibur, Tekken, and Dragon Ball. That was really cool. If you guys don't watch that, it's on Anime Illuminati on Tuesday nights every time in Japan. So if you're in the US, it's probably Monday night or Tuesday morning, very early. Go check it out. So I went to 2 different locals while I was there in Japan. just because I wanted to see if there was any players there, anything like that. And while I was at Akihabara Esports Square, I played a bunch of people, including a guy named Ujix, who ended up beating Xiaohai. He upset him there, right? Which was really cool. I thought that was really interesting because I was standing there waiting in line to play this guy on a setup at Akihabara Esports Square. Then he lost to a Laura player who was from France, who was also on stream that I also commentated a match of. So it was like really cool, right? Because I went to that place and I was there at that local. I was like, I'm going to be here for 2 hours and I'm going to leave. And I stayed for like 5. I couldn't pull myself away. I kept playing games. Every Japanese player who made top 8, I thought was somebody that I was familiar with. And the players that I met at Akihabara Esports Square were in like top 64, top 32. Just for Ujix beating Xiaohai alone, I was happy that I went and spent money and time there, right? And got to play a bunch of games and got fucked up by Kazunoko. He beat the shit out of me. Onmon is a Grandmaster Urian player who was there, and he got fucked up by Kazunoko, and then I got fucked up by Kazunoko, and we kind of looked at each other like, what are we supposed to do? He beat us back to back. Some of the other things I thought about when it came to Japan, this is just a normal thing that I do, is fixing my sleep schedule and making sure I was really well rested. I didn't do anything crazy in Japan. I basically just thought about the whole time about making sure that I was going to be comfortable and ready to work and make sure that I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Then I showed up, and of course, I don't commentate until like 4 p.m. every day. But usually, I am cursed with the 8 a.m. commentary, so I was ready. I was like, if I have to be up and ready for 8 a.m. commentary at Evo Japan, I'll be ready for it in this time zone. The last thing, and probably the most interesting, important thing about this event is who I commentated with. I only actually did 3 blocks at Evo Japan. I don't know if anybody noticed it. One with Kenny Omega, one with Li Joe, and then finals with F-Word. All 3 of those commentators that I worked with were completely different matchups, right? I had to think about F-Word the least because F-Word is just a beast, and I've worked with him before, right? I had to think about Kenny and Li Joe because both of them are not traditional commentators, right? They're not in the sense that like F-Word has a million hours of fighting game commentary, right? These two probably have like, 50 to 100 hours practice, but they're both very good on the mic. So what I liked about this event is that it was an interesting challenge in the sense that I got to work with 2 people who are not usual fighting game commentators. So when I was commentating with Kenny, one thing that I really noticed about Kenny is his mic skills are excellent. His knowledge of the game and the community is amazing, but you have to link him into your conversation, right? That's what I like about talking with Kenny is once you and him are like, you have that mental connection where it's like, boom, then the 2 of you, it's easy peasy. So that's all I realized about commentating with Kenny is that he's so easy to commentate with because he knows so much about the game and so much about the community. Joe is really easy to work with, right? Because he's a pro. He's been around for so long. He knows exactly what he's doing. Easy to talk to, easy to commentate with. And him and I have hung out outside of just, being on the mic together. Easy peasy. And for finals, F-Word is a beast. And I'll say this, and I'll tell you guys, because I think it is the truth. Of all the commentators who only do Street Fighter, who Street Fighter is their primary game, it's like what they do, I think F-Word is the strongest. Sitting on the mic with him is very, very easy. So his player knowledge is great. His game knowledge is great. His hype levels are very, very good. His ability to mesh with other people is super strong. And he plays off everybody very, very easily. So he's one of those commentators that just sitting there is no problem. I just sit down on the desk, we chat it up for a couple hours, wrap it up, let's go home, right? Easy peasy. I had a great time. So when I knew that it was him and I in the finals, I knew that there'd be no problem. Guys like him, guys like Steve, Yipes, there are commentators that are so easy to work with because they're just good at whatever they need to be good at, right? That's the kind of commentator you want to be. I don't mean that in the sense you should copy their style. I mean that in the sense that when you work with someone, you're like, damn, they made it so easy. Every time I didn't know something, they had the answer. Every time I was distracted, they saw something. Every time, there was a situation where I didn't know what to say, they filled in. It's just perfect. You bounce back and forth on the mic, no problem, right? He's a beast. Yeah, Steve, I think, is the easiest commentator to work with in fighting games. And I don't think it's that close. Anybody in the chat room right now could sit down on the microphone with Tasty Steve and commentate a Tekken Top 8 and it would be fine. Dude, this guy Steve went and ran over and jumped on the Chinese stream at Evo Japan and was telling them to make some noise and he was talking to them and shit. Man, that motherfucker's the mayor of Earth. I'm telling you right now. You guys think I'm kidding. But this dude, Steve, just everybody wants to talk to him. The biggest problem with working with somebody like Steve, especially in the beginning when we first started commentating together, one of my biggest things that I always thought about was like, man, when I commentate with Steve, he's so good. He's so good that sometimes I wonder if I'm good, if that makes any sense. When you commentate with him, he's so good that you're like, fuck, I got to make sure that it's not just him. I got to make sure that it's like not just I'm trash and this guy Steve is a fucking beast. But obviously since then, him and I rarely ever work together anymore. I don't know if you noticed that. We're so needed in so many different places that we never get to work together, which sucks. But the problem is this: you have Steve and you have I. We're together, Steve and I. People love it. We love it. It makes us very happy. When we commentate together, fantastic. The issue is that when you put us together like that, you can't power up other people, right? So if you put me over here and you put Steve over here, then you spread the power levels out. Imagine if there's two bad guys in Dragon Ball. We could team up and fuse and handle it at the same time, or we can split up and go help our friends, right? Yipes is also very easy to work with and very good. If there's one thing about Yipes that I noticed that I am not good at as a commentator, but he is very good at, is looking at the game. And I don't mean that like just, with my eyeballs. When I look at the game, I see, oh, he did back 1-2 into down back 2 into this, into that, so we can get the standing reset into that. What Yipes sees is like, did you see the way he cartwheeled right there? And then he starts making a reference about like something that's outside the game. Because I don't see, like, I'm not looking at like the animations or the personality or anything like that sometimes. So imagine like for him, he's watching something visually that's like, it's like a play, right? He sees everything, all the moving parts. He sees all the different things about it. For me, I just see the matrix. I just see the numbers and I just see what's happening. He sees the girl in the red dress and I see zeros and ones. So combined, it's like, oh shit, we got it all. Those are the things that I find interesting and fun about fighting games, right? I can see the frames. Able to explain the technical play-by-play. Yeah, so that's my job. My job is to do that. Like, yeah, Tony Romo. A lot of people said that after Evo Japan. People ask me, they're like, how did you always know? How did you always like make the read? And the thing is that comes from playing the game a shit ton. And also watching a lot and understanding like the decisions and the decision making of all the players on the screen, right? If you understand the goals of this character and that character and the players, and you understand the resources meter and space between them, you can make a guess or you can paint a picture of what they're looking for. Because if I think about a match in my head, I can imagine how it's going. Right? I can imagine like what is happening, what the characters are looking for, like why this character is doing that, right? So like when I think about it like that, it's very easy for me to be like, yeah, he's probably going to walk up here and then boom, boom, hell attack with Bison. You're like, easy. What player throws you off with the most unique play style? When you commentate a Kazunoko match, we always say the same thing, right? Or at least I do. When I commentate Kazunoko, this is what I say. Kazunoko is very hard to beat because he's one of the players that he's going to do what he wants to do. It doesn't matter what you try to do to stop it. He's going to do it. And even if you think to yourself, okay, I know he's going to do a dragon punch on wake up. Even if you put that in your mind, like the 9th time he does it, it will still hit you for no fucking reason. You're like, I don't know. There's no way that he's going to do it. Absolutely no way that he'd do it again. And then he does. And you're like, you stupid bitch. But when I played him, he jumped at me and like, I didn't anti-air him once. And then he jumped at me the next time. I did an anti-air and it got stuffed. And I was like, okay. It stuffed my anti-air that time. But now I'm ready for it. So if he jumps again, and by the time that thought was halfway through my head, this motherfucker was already in the air. And I was like, oh shit. And then I blocked it. And I was like, all right, he's so stupid. He might be the stupidest person of all time. He fucking jumped again, right? So next time he jumps, boom, he was in the air, right? Crouching fierce with Urian. He did EX Kunai with Ibuki and beat it. And I was like, okay, well, he did EX Kunai. He did it one time. So the next time he jumps, immediately in the air, crouching fierce, he did EX Kunai again, right? And I was like, oh my God, all right, I got to respect the EX Kunai. When he jumps at me, he jumps again. I don't do anything. He does regular jump in. And I was like, I'm going to jump over this table and kill you, you motherfucker. You think you're so smart. You just did the same shit 9 times in a row. All right, I'm going to down back. So if he jumps at me, I'll EX headbutt it, right? I was like, I'll EX headbutt it, no problem, right? So I'm down backing. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for so long. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I refuse to do it. I'm a very patient player. I was like, I refuse to do anything. I'm just going to wait. Kazunoko's going to jump. I'm going to EX headbutt. Man, he hasn't done anything in so long. He's just been walking back and forth. Oh, God. What if he's going to walk up and... Hold on, I'll just walk back. I walked back for 2 frames. Kazunoko was in the air. And I was like, fuck. What am I supposed to do? He's just impossible. I can't stop him. I waited for so long. For so long. I was like just chilling. What am I supposed to do? And by that time, it was time for me to get off the station. So I unplugged the stick. And I was out of there. I was gone. That's why it's important to play games, right? So that I can describe to you in great detail how frustrating of a human being he is. That's why he's the Dragon Ball FighterZ champion. It's why he's a multi-time champion, Capcom Cup champion, extremely talented fighting game player. Best way to defeat them is to go ham. I don't know if that's true. I don't know how you defeat him. A lot of people have tried to go ham on Kazunoko and it hasn't worked. What's my favorite game to watch Kazunoko play? Not Guilty Gear. I hate watching him play Guilty Gear. Every time I watch Kazunoko play Guilty Gear, it makes me mad. So that's my answer. My answer is not Guilty Gear. When he plays Guilty Gear, this motherfucker drops everything. He misses every setup. He messes up every combo. Someone gets a hit that should kill him. They drop it. He techs, and then he kills them. Every time. I don't know why, but that happens in like every Kazunoko Guilty Gear match.